"Here we don't need evidence," said the police officer, until he discovered who that black woman really was. The flashing red and blue lights cut through the night like a wound. Rain poured down on the quiet suburban street, but the shouting didn't stop. "Hands where I can see them," the officer barked, his voice sharp and dismissive, the kind that didn't invite questions. The woman he was shouting at didn't move. She stood still beside her car, soaked to the bone, eyes steady, calm. Her name was Elaine Porter, and she had learned long ago that silence often spoke louder than fear. But the officer, Sergeant Mark Riley, didn't see calm. He saw defiance. He saw a black woman in an expensive car, in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time. "Did you hear me?" he snapped, stepping closer, hand resting on his holster. "What are you doing here, ma'am?" Elaine exhaled slowly. "Driving home." "Home?" His eyes flicked to the ID she was holding out, but he didn't take it. "Let me guess, borrowed the car? Or maybe stole it?" Her jaw tightened. She had been here before, in 1,000 different ways. The same tone, the same suspicion, the same quiet humiliation dressed as procedure. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she said evenly. But Riley wasn't listening. He circled her car, his flashlight scanning through the window. "You people always say that. You think just because you wear nice clothes, you're different?" Elaine's voice stayed calm, but there was an edge beneath it now. "Officer, I would advise you to choose your words carefully." He laughed. "Advise me?" "That's cute. You think you can tell me how to do my job?" He stepped closer again, the rain hitting the brim of his hat. "You see, here we don't need evidence," he sneered. "We just need attitude. And you've got plenty of it." A flash of lightning lit the street. For a split second his badge gleamed, as did the wet surface of her ID still in her hand. It slipped, landing face up in the shallow puddle between them. Riley's flashlight followed it automatically. And when he saw the words printed in gold beneath her name, his face froze. Han Elaine Porter, U.S. District Judge. For a moment, the world went silent except for the rain. His expression shifted from arrogance to disbelief, then something else. Fear. Elaine bent down slowly, picked up the soaked ID, and met his eyes. Her voice, low but commanding, carried over the storm. "Now, Sergeant," she said, "would you like to repeat what you just told me about not needing evidence?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. She stepped closer, her presence towering despite her calm. "I've spent my entire career fighting for justice," she said. "Men like you are the reason I had to." Behind them, another patrol car pulled up, flashing lights reflecting off the wet asphalt. 2 officers stepped out, immediately recognizing her. "Judge Porter?" one of them stammered. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She didn't take her eyes off Riley. "Not yet," she said. "But I will be. Because in a world where some people think power gives them the right to humiliate others, there are still moments, rare but unforgettable, when the truth turns the tables." And that night, on a rain-soaked street, justice didn't come from a badge. It came from a woman who had worn dignity like armor her entire life. If you believe that truth and character will always speak louder than prejudice, subscribe. Because here on Justice Found, every story ends where justice finally wins. The rain came down in waves that night, thick, relentless, and strangely fitting. Judge Elaine Porter had spent the last 12 hours presiding over a federal corruption case, her mind exhausted but sharp as ever. She rarely drove herself home, but her driver had called out sick, and she'd decided a quiet drive through the back. Streets of suburban Maryland might help her clear her. Head, she didn't see the police cruiser until the flashing lights exploded in her rearview mirror. "Really?" she murmured, signaling and pulling over to the shoulder. She hadn't been speeding. Her taillights worked. Her registration was up to date. She already knew what this was. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw the officer approach, tall, white, mid-40s, with the slow swagger of someone who'd done this 100 times and enjoyed it every time. He tapped on the glass. "License and registration." Elaine lowered her window halfway. "Evening, officer. May I ask what this is about?" His flashlight swept over her face, lingering longer than necessary. "Where are you headed?" "Home," he smirked. "Mind telling me where that is?" She raised an eyebrow. "Does that question usually come before or after you tell people why you pulled them over?" His jaw tightened. "I'm asking the questions here, ma'am." He leaned down slightly, peering into the car interior. Leather seats, briefcase on the passenger side, her judicial robe folded neatly in the back. His tone hardened. Nice car. BMW, huh? You sure it's yours? Elaine met his eyes. Yes, officer. I'm sure. He straightened up, tapping the roof of her car with the edge of his flashlight. Step out of the vehicle. Excuse me. I said step out. Am I being detained? She asked calmly. His smirk widened. Depends. You got anything in there I should know about? No. Then you got nothing to worry about, do you? She sighed, unbuckling her seatbelt. Her years as a public defender had taught her what happened to people who refused. Still, as she stepped out into the rain, a cold anger brewed behind her composure. The water soaked through her coat almost instantly. Hands where I can see them, he ordered, circling her like a predator. You fit the description of a suspect in the area. Dark car, dark clothes. She looked down at her tailored black pantsuit. I see. And what's the description of this suspect exactly? He smirked. Black, female, driving too nice a car for this neighborhood. The words hit like a slap. She'd heard it before, in courtrooms, in whispers, in misunderstandings. But hearing it here, in the rain with a gun inches from his hand, brought back every battle she thought she'd already won. She lifted her chin. Officer, you're making a mistake. Oh, I don't make mistakes, he said. Here we don't need evidence. We just need a reason. He reached for her purse. What's in here? Her patience finally cracked. My identification, she said sharply, which you have refused to take. She pulled it from her pocket and held it up. The rain caught the laminated surface, light bouncing off the gold seal. He frowned, annoyed that she wasn't trembling. Put that down, he snapped. I'll take it when I'm ready, but she didn't lower it. You're ready now. The lightning flashed again, a bright, silent burst. In that split second, the bold lettering gleamed across her ID on Elaine Porter, U.S. District Judge. His expression shifted. The arrogance in his face drained away, replaced by something almost childlike. Confusion, fear, disbelief. He stammered. You're a... Yes, she said, her voice like steel. A federal judge. And you've just profiled one. He stepped back slightly, his hand dropping from his holster. I mean, you have to understand it. I understand perfectly. She stepped closer, water dripping from her coat. You assumed who I was before you even asked my name. And you thought your badge protected you from accountability? Another cruiser pulled up behind them. Two younger officers got out, their expressions shifting to shock when they saw her face. Judge Porter? One said, rushing forward. Ma'am, I'm fine, she interrupted. Eyes still locked on Riley. But I'll need your badge number. His lips parted, but no sound came out. As she got back into her car, rain dripping from her sleeves, she felt the weight of something deeper, not just the insult, but the symbol. Even after years on the bench, even with power, education, and authority, she was still seen first by her color. But this time, she thought, starting the engine. It won't end in silence. The next morning, as she walked into her courtroom, she found an envelope on her desk, no return address. Just a single phrase typed neatly on white paper. Judges should remember the law doesn't protect everyone. The courthouse smelled of polished oak and old paper, a scent Judge Elaine Porter normally found grounding. But that morning, as she walked through the marble hallway toward her chambers, something in her gut felt off. The memory of last night still clung to her. The rain, the condescension, the way Officer Riley's expression had turned from arrogance to fear when he saw her ID. She had gone home drenched but dignified, thinking the worst was behind her. She was wrong. The white envelope on her desk was out of place. No postage, no seal, just her name typed neatly across the front. Her assistant Maya stood by the door, uneasy. Judge Porter, she said quietly. That was delivered by hand. Security's checking the cameras now. Elaine nodded, slipping on a glove before picking it up. Thank you, Maya. Give me a moment. She broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, centered and typed in bold black font. Judges should remember, the law doesn't protect everyone. That was it. No name, no signature, just that chilling line. Elaine stared at the words, her mind already analyzing tone, syntax, phrasing. Not the message of a random crank, but something deliberate, measured. Someone wanted her to feel exposed. She looked up at Maya. Tell security, I want footage from every entrance since 6 a.m. Yes, Your Honor. When the door closed, Elaine exhaled slowly. Her hands trembled slightly, betraying the fear she refused to show. By mid-morning, the courtroom was packed. The case of State v. Vaughn, a local police brutality trial, had drawn press attention for weeks. Ironically, Elaine had been criticized in conservative circles for being too sympathetic toward civil rights plaintiffs. Now, looking out over the courtroom, she saw the irony sharpen into something personal. The defense attorney was none other than Lieutenant Mark Riley's precinct counsel, Frank Lasker, a man known for defending officers accused of misconduct. He smirked when he saw her take the bench. "Good morning, Your Honor," he said with a politeness that felt more like mockery. Elaine met his eyes, cold and unshaken. "Good morning, Counselor. Let's proceed." The case ran smoothly, too smoothly. But beneath every exchange, she felt the unspoken tension. They knew who she was, what had happened. Someone was reminding her that she was being watched. Later that afternoon, as she stepped out of the courtroom, she found Chief Deputy Lewis, head of courthouse security, waiting outside her chambers. "We found something," he said grimly, handing her a printout. The surveillance still showed a man in plain clothes entering through the staff entrance that morning, face hidden beneath a baseball cap. He dropped the envelope on Maya's desk, then left through the side exit. Elaine frowned. "Any luck identifying him?" "Working on it," Lewis said. "But here's the part that's odd. We ran facial recognition. He's not in the system, not law enforcement, not a registered visitor." She raised an eyebrow. "So he knew how to bypass standard entry checks." Lewis nodded. "Exactly. This wasn't random." That evening, Elaine sat at her kitchen table, the note beside her like a ghost. She poured herself a glass of wine but barely touched it. Every few minutes, she looked toward the window, the same reflex she'd had since last night's traffic stop. She turned on the local news. The first headline made her stomach drop. Judge who criticized police department pulled over in controversial traffic stop. There it was. Dashcam footage leaked. The angle caught her face clearly, her calm tone and the officer's arrogance. It had already gone viral. Comment sections scrolled across the screen. Another angry black woman playing the victim. Maybe if she wasn't arrogant, she wouldn't have been stopped. Who cares if she's a judge? She should respect the badge. Elaine turned the TV off. The glass in her hand trembled, but her eyes stayed dry. She wasn't going to cry. She'd spent too many years fighting stereotypes to let one night undo her. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "We warned you once. Stay quiet, Judge." Her blood ran cold. The next morning, Maya rushed into her chambers, pale. "Judge Porter, you need to see this." She held out a folder. Inside were printed screenshots from social media. Anonymous accounts were circulating photos of Elaine, her home address, even her car license plate. Elaine felt her breath catch. "They're doxing me?" Maya nodded. "Yes, ma'am. And some of these posts, they're coming from police-related forums." For a moment, Elaine said nothing. Then she straightened her shoulders, her calm composure sliding back into place like armor. "Call the U.S. Marshal's office," she said. "If they think they can intimidate me into silence, they picked the wrong judge." That night, as rain began to fall again, Elaine walked toward her car in the courthouse parking lot. She reached for her keys and froze. A bullet casing lay glinting beside her front tire, and on the windshield, written in thick black marker, were 3 words: "We remember you." The parking lot was almost empty, the hum of the streetlights drowned out by the patter of rain. Judge Elaine Porter stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the bullet casing glinting near her car tire. The words on the windshield, "and we remember you," blurred as water streamed down the glass. For a long moment, she couldn't move. Then, instinct took over. She pulled out her phone, snapped several photos, and called security. Her voice was calm, too calm even for her. Years in law had taught her that fear and control could not coexist. "Chief Lewis," she said when he answered, "I need you in the south parking lot now." By the time he arrived, she had already roped off the area with yellow tape from the courthouse trunk emergency kit. She kept one for crime scene visits, never thinking she'd need it for herself. Lewis crouched beside the casing, gloved hands steady. ".45 caliber, he murmured. "Looks like it was placed here, not fired." "A message," she said flatly. He nodded grimly. "We're reviewing cameras again." "But Judge, whoever's doing this, they're not amateurs." They know procedure. They know how we investigate. Elaine crossed her arms. Then they know they've already made a mistake. Lewis looked up at her. You should take protective detail. I'm not hiding behind guards, she said. If I disappear, they win. He hesitated, then nodded. At least let me escort you home tonight. Her home was dark when she entered, quiet except for the steady ticking of the grandfather clock her father had left her. The irony of the sound wasn't lost on her. Her father, a civil rights attorney, had once told her, in this country justice moves slow, but so does truth, and truth always catches up. She set her coat down, poured a glass of water, and stared at her reflection in the kitchen window. Rain streaked down the glass, her own faint outline framed by lightning flashes. A judge. A black woman. A target. She whispered to herself. They picked the wrong one. The next morning she walked into her office flanked by 2 deputy marshals. Cameras flashed from every corner. The story of her traffic stop had ignited a media storm. Some saw her as a hero. Others called her an agitator in a robe. Inside her chambers, Assistant U.S. Attorney David Chen, a longtime ally, was waiting. He rose as she entered. Elaine, he said softly, I just came from D.C. headquarters. They're aware of the threats. This isn't local anymore. She sank into her chair. They've escalated fast, David nodded. There's more. We traced one of the anonymous accounts posting your address. It's linked to a department-issued laptop. She looked up sharply. You mean, yes, someone inside the force. Elaine leaned back, jaw tightening. And yet they say it's just a few bad apples. David's tone was firm. We'll find out who's behind it. But in the meantime, I'm filing a motion to recuse you from the Vaughn case. It's too risky, her eyes flashed. You think I'm stepping down? Elaine, it's not safe. No. Her voice was low but steady. If I step down, I send a message and that fear works. I won't do it, David sighed. Then at least let me sit in during the next hearing. As counsel, not friend. She nodded slowly. Fine. That night, as the courthouse emptied, Elaine stayed behind. The silence of her chambers wrapped around her, broken only by the faint hum of the air vent. She opened her laptop and began drafting an op-ed, not as a judge, but as a citizen. It began, Justice is not blind. She sees everything, who is protected, who is ignored, and who is punished for existing in the wrong skin. Her fingers trembled as she typed, but she didn't stop. Each word felt like armor. Then, a knock on the door. Judge Porter? She froze. It wasn't Maya's voice, male. Deep. She rose slowly, moving toward the door. Who is it? No answer. Another knock. Louder. Her hand reached for the panic button under her desk. A silent alert to courthouse security. Then a voice she didn't expect. Elaine. It's Riley. Her blood ran cold. She opened the door a few inches. Officer Mark Riley stood there, drenched in rain, his uniform half-buttoned, eyes bloodshot. What are you doing here? She demanded. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice low and shaking. I have nothing to say to you. He shook his head violently. Please, it's not what you think. They're coming for me too. Her brow furrowed. Who's coming? Riley looked over his shoulder, voice breaking. The people I work for. The ones who told me to stop you that night. They're not cops. They're bigger. You have no idea what you're up against, Elaine's heart pounded. Then start talking, he swallowed hard. You're not being targeted for what happened on that street. You're being targeted for what's coming next. A loud crash echoed from the hallway, glass shattering. Riley's head snapped toward the sound. He whispered, It's too late. And before Elaine could move, the lights went out. The lights snapped off with a hard pop, plunging the hallway into blackness. Judge Elaine Porter stood frozen, her breath caught halfway between instinct and disbelief. Across from her, Officer Mark Riley pressed his back against the wall, eyes wide, whispering, They cut the power. A low hum echoed through the corridor, the emergency generator trying and failing to kick in. The courthouse at night was never truly silent. But now the silence was suffocating. Stay here, Riley whispered, pulling the small flashlight from his belt. Its beam cut a narrow slice of white across the hallway, just enough to reveal movement at the far end. 2 shadows. Moving slow. Deliberate. Elaine's pulse quickened. Who are they? Riley didn't answer. He grabbed her arm. We have to move, now. He pulled her into her chambers and locked the door. The sound of footsteps echoed closer. Riley turned off the flashlight, leaving only the faint light of the city bleeding through the window blinds. Elaine's voice was a whisper. You need to start explaining. Right now, Riley's face was slick with rain and fear. You think this is about me being racist, about a bad stop? But it's not. That night I was following orders, she frowned. From who? He hesitated. From a task force, unofficial. A mix of cops, retired feds, and some private contractors. They call themselves the Line. Their job is to maintain control, keep people like you in check. Judges who talk too much, prosecutors who dig too deep, black officials who make the wrong people uncomfortable. Elaine stared at him, her voice cold. So they sent you to humiliate me? He nodded miserably. To remind you you're not untouchable. They wanted you off the Vaughn case. You were going to expose a network of bad arrests that lead straight to them. Elaine's stomach turned. And the threats? The messages? Riley's voice broke. Them. I tried to back out and they told me to finish what I started, but I couldn't do it. I went to my captain. He told me to drop it. Next thing I know, they're at my house. My wife's gone. My son's missing, her heart clenched. Gone? He nodded, voice cracking. They left a note. He'll stay safe if you do your part. That's why I came tonight. You're their next move. A loud thud at the door jolted them both. Elaine grabbed her phone, no signal. The emergency line was dead. Riley pointed toward the small service exit at the back of her office. A door used only by maintenance. That leads to the basement stairs. From there, the garage. Elaine hesitated. You think I can trust you? He met her gaze. You don't have to trust me. Just survive. They slipped through the narrow hallway, the air heavy with dust and old concrete. The emergency lights flickered to life in short bursts, red strobes that made everything feel like a crime scene. When they reached the stairwell, Riley stopped suddenly, motioning for her to stay still. A faint beam of light moved below. Someone else was down there. Elaine whispered, How many? 2, maybe 3, armed. He nodded, her mind raced. If I die here, the story dies with me. She clenched her jaw. We're not running. We exposed them. Riley turned to her. You don't understand, she cut him off. I'm done being hunted. If I'm going down, I'm taking the truth with me. He stared at her, then nodded. There's a server room 2 floors down. Backup power. If we can access the security feeds, we can send everything out. Elaine took a breath. Then let's move. They made it to the 2nd floor. The emergency lights hummed softly, flickering across polished tile. Riley punched a code into the door panel. Come on. Come on. A click. The door opened. Rows of monitors glowed dimly in the dark room. Riley went to the main terminal, typing fast. I'm pulling footage from the cameras. They'll prove everything. Elaine watched the screens flicker. The grainy security feed from the parking lot appeared. 2 men in black carrying rifles entering through the staff gate. Her voice was low. Send it now. Riley hit the upload command. A progress bar appeared. 12%, 24%, then gunfire. Glass shattered behind them as a bullet tore through a monitor. Sparks flew, Riley shouted, Get down! And tackled her to the ground. The screen still flickered, 77%. 9%, he yelled, Go, go! It's sending. Elaine crawled toward the power box, heart hammering. The last thing she heard before another shot rang out was Riley gasping, a short, sharp sound that silenced the room. She turned. He was on the floor, blood pooling beneath him, eyes wide and unfocused. The upload bar hit 100%. Elaine reached for his hand, whispering, You did it. Outside, sirens wailed, faint, then closer, then deafening. Minutes later, as police flooded the courthouse, Elaine stood beside the fallen officer, rain blowing in through the shattered window. One of the marshals rushed in, breathless. Judge Porter. The feed, it went public, everything, the dash cams, the threats, the internal files. It's all over the news. Elaine closed her eyes, tears mixing with the rain. Justice, raw, painful, and real, had finally spoken. As paramedics lifted Riley's body, one of the marshals approached Elaine quietly, holding out a second phone found in his pocket. On the screen was a text from an unknown sender. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. The words glared up from the phone screen like a curse. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. Judge Elaine Porter stared at the message, the world around her reduced to a blur of flashing red and blue lights. Paramedics carried Officer Riley's body past her. The rain beat against the courthouse windows like a slow, relentless drum. "Judge Porter," one of the U.S. Marshals said, his tone careful. "We need to get you out of here." "You're not safe." She didn't move. Her mind was still locked on the phone in her hand, the glow of that message burning into her thoughts. "They're not finished," she whispered. The Marshal nodded grimly. "Then we won't give them another shot." He led her down the corridor toward an unmarked exit. Outside, black SUVs idled under the streetlights, their headlights slicing through the fog. Elaine hesitated at the door. "What about the upload?" "It's everywhere," he said. "News networks, federal servers, social media. You exposed them. It's over." But the look in his eyes told her he didn't believe that, not really. By morning, the story had gone national. "Judge Porter courthouse attack linked to rogue police network," read one headline. "Whistleblower cop dead after leaking internal corruption footage," said another. Elaine sat in a secure federal facility in Washington, D.C., watching the coverage on a muted TV. Her phone buzzed constantly. Reporters, government contacts, old friends offering cautious praise or thinly veiled fear. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Riley's face, the moment he realized it was too late. When the door opened, AUSA David Chen stepped in. He looked as exhausted as she felt. "Elaine," he said softly, taking the seat opposite her. "We've got confirmation." The line wasn't just a local outfit. They're national, embedded in departments from New York to Phoenix. Retired military, police, private security contractors. Funded off the books. Elaine's voice was low. "And they had the power to target a federal judge?" David nodded. "Exactly. And the upload is causing chaos. Some agencies are trying to distance themselves. Others are denying everything. Congress is demanding hearings," she exhaled slowly. "Then it's working." He hesitated. "Maybe, but there's more. We intercepted chatter this morning. Encrypted messages linked to the same network. They mentioned you by name." "Phase 2 isn't a metaphor," Elaine frowned. "Then what is it?" David slid a file across the table. Inside were crime scene stills from different states. Each one showed the same mark, a black line spray-painted on a wall or door. He said, "Phase 2 means elimination. They're cleaning house. Anyone connected to exposure is being silenced." Elaine's stomach turned. "Riley's family? Gone into protection last night," David said. "But others were too late." That evening, Elaine was moved to a safe house, a small cottage outside Alexandria, surrounded by woods and armed guards. For the first time in days, the quiet felt unnatural. She stood by the window looking out into the fog. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she remembered. Her father's words echoed in her mind again. "Justice moves slow. But truth never stops walking," she whispered to herself. "Then I'll keep it walking." Hours later, near midnight, she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open, typing a statement for the press. This is not just about corruption, it's about control, about fear, about what happens when those sworn to uphold the law start believing they are above it. "The line may think they've silenced me, but the law does not die in the dark. It endures." She was halfway through her next sentence when a faint click broke the silence. Her eyes darted toward the back door. Another click, like a latch turning. She rose slowly, her heart thudding. "Marshal?" she called. No answer. The power flickered once, twice, then went out. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of wind through the trees. Then from the darkness, a voice she recognized, calm, cold. "Judge Porter," it said. "You should have stayed quiet." Elaine froze. "Who's there?" The flashlight beam hit her face, blinding her. Then it lowered, revealing a man in a black tactical jacket with no insignia. She saw it instantly, a thin black line painted across his sleeve. One of them. He smiled faintly. "Phase 2 isn't about killing you," he said. "It's about making you irrelevant." He tossed a file onto the table. Inside were staged photos, doctored images, falsified evidence, designed to make her look complicit in the very corruption she'd exposed. Elaine's voice was steady. "You think I'll let you destroy my name?" The man tilted his head. It's already done. He turned to leave him, but Elaine's voice stopped him. You forgot one thing, she said. You don't own the narrative anymore. Her eyes flicked toward the small camera hidden behind the lamp, live streaming the entire encounter to her secure cloud. The man froze. From outside, headlights appeared, SUVs barreling down the driveway, sirens piercing the quiet. Elaine stepped forward, her tone calm, controlled, and full of fire. Welcome to Phase 3, she said. The man lunged toward her just as the front door burst open. A single gunshot echoed through the night, then silence. And somewhere, deep in the city, a new message appeared on an encrypted server. She's still alive. Move to Phase 3. The gunshot rang through the night like thunder, echoing through the dense trees. Judge Elaine Porter hit the ground instinctively, her ears ringing. The air smelled of gunpowder and rain. When she looked up, the tactical intruder lay motionless near the doorway, his black jacket torn by a single precise bullet. U.S. Marshals stormed into the house, weapons raised. Clear, clear, one shouted. Another knelt by the man's body, pressing 2 fingers to his neck. He's gone, the marshal said. Elaine rose slowly, her heart still pounding. The lights flickered back on, flooding the room with a harsh white glow. The live camera above the lamp was still blinking, still recording. Judge Porter, said the lead marshal, lowering his weapon. Are you injured? She shook her head. No, but you might want to take that, she said, pointing to the camera. Everything's on record, his confession, his threats, the file he brought. The marshal's gaze hardened. That's our proof. We've got them, but Elaine knew better. Proof didn't stop systems. People did. By sunrise, the safe house was surrounded by federal agents, vehicles, and reporters kept far behind barricades. Elaine sat inside a field office van watching the replay of the night before. The intruder's words were clear. Phase 2 isn't about killing you. It's about making you irrelevant. Now, the footage was undeniable evidence, but evidence alone wasn't victory. She turned to David Chen, who had driven through the night to be there. His eyes were red, but his expression was steady. It's enough to blow the lid off the operation, he said. The Attorney General's authorizing a joint investigation. They can't hide this anymore. Elaine stared out the window, where the morning fog lifted over the woods. They'll try, she said quietly. They'll call it a rogue faction. A few bad actors. But this was a system, David nodded. Then we burned the system down. By noon, Elaine was standing before a podium at the Department of Justice in Washington. Cameras clicked. News anchors whispered. Millions watched live. She looked calm, but inside her heart beat like a drum. She wasn't just speaking as a judge. She was speaking as a black woman who had faced every wall the law could build against her and was still standing. She began. Last week, I was stopped by a police officer who saw my color before my credentials. Tonight, that same system tried to silence me again. But let me be very clear. The justice system does not belong to them. It belongs to the people. What we have uncovered is not a scandal. It's a sickness, one that festers when fear replaces accountability. But we will not be silent, not now, not ever again. Justice Found is not just a name. It's a promise. Her voice cracked only once when she mentioned Officer Mark Riley. He began this story as my oppressor and ended it as my witness. His death will not be in vain. The room was silent when she finished. Cameras zoomed in on her face, wet with emotion but fierce with resolve. Later that night, Elaine sat in her hotel room, finally alone. The city outside glowed in gold and blue, the quiet aftermath of a storm that had shaken the nation. Her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it, but something about the unknown number made her pause. A text appeared. The line is broken, but not erased. Elaine read it twice, then typed back. Neither am I. She set the phone down, exhaling slowly. The weight she'd carried for days began to lift, replaced by something steadier. Resolve, maybe even peace. She walked to the window, looking out at the city she'd sworn to serve. Below, news vans were still parked, reporters still talking. The world was watching now, and that mattered. Behind her, the television played a live broadcast. Congress to launch federal probe into police corruption network known as The Line. Elaine smiled faintly. Good, she whispered. Let them answer. The camera would fade here, her silhouette framed against the city lights. Strong and unbroken, a narrator's voice, and calm, deep, cinematic, and would close the story. She faced a system built to silence her and forced it to speak. She was profiled, threatened, and nearly erased, but justice remembered her name. Because truth may tremble, but it never disappears. And no matter how dark the night, justice always finds its way. She was stopped because of her skin, not because of her actions. They tried to make her small, to strip her of her dignity, but they never saw the strength behind her silence. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come with a gavel. It comes when truth refuses to bow. And that night when they tried to break her, she reminded them who she truly was. Not a victim, not a name on a file, but the very thing they feared most, a woman who knew the law and lived by it. In the end, they learned what power really means. Not the power to control, but the power to stand. Because no matter how unfair the world seems, no matter how deep the darkness, truth rises. And justice always finds its way.